Welcome back to Ember Productions. I'm the Burr involved in all of this, and you're
Maxwell.
The M.
The M.
The M. So you put us together and you get M and Burr and all that stuff. And this is our The Boys recap. So, wow, what a new season.
Yeah, we're going to be talking tonight about the first 3 episodes of season 3 of The Boys, which premiered last Friday, June the 3rd. They are releasing every successive episode one by one over the next few Fridays. So we will be coming back every week to talk about those. Just a little housekeeping. We're going to start off with just a very basic spoiler-free talk about our thoughts about the episodes at large. And then we're going to dive into each episode by episode, and go full spoilers. So if you have not watched these episodes yet, turn this off, go to Amazon, watch the episodes, and then come back, because we are going to spoil everything. Joining us tonight and for all of our Boys season 3 recaps is the illustrious Robert Adams. How are you tonight, Robert?
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Cannot complain.
Yeah, pretty good. I'm excited to talk about The Boys. I love this show. I would venture to say this season is off to an excellent, disgustingly, deliciously violent start, which, you know, I think
you knew 10 minutes into the first episode where it was headed for this season. So
listen, every good television show makes it clear early on in their run what you can expect from that show. And the best shows for me are the ones that not only deliver on that promise, but push the limits of what that promise can be. So we will get more into that when we start breaking down the episodes with spoilers, but suffice it to say, this is not a show for the faint of heart. This is not a show for those who are squeamish or don't like violence. This is as MA mature rated as television gets, and I would argue it's all the better for it.
That's literally why we only have one Adams and not both, because Chris is not down for this show.
Yes. So for those who don't know, Robert Adams has a channel with his brother Chris Adams. They are the Cinefanatics. Make sure you go over to their channel and subscribe. They produce a ton of great content.
Absolutely.
We are happy to have them as our friends and collaborators, but this is not a Chris Adams television program. This is an Ember and Robert Adams program, because it is gnarly.
Gnarly is, that's a word. Yeah,
that's definitely a term. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we should totally just get into, our non-spoilery things. How are you guys feeling about the first 3 episodes that we watched?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of hits the ground running. Season 2 left some cliffhangers up in the air. Some information was revealed to us that helped illuminate certain character motivations and certain events that were unclear. And like a lot of TV, there is a year time jump at the start of season 3. I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that's just setting up the context. And one of the great things about this show, and why I think it's so good, is obviously superhero movies and superhero storytelling are the predominant form of popular media in modern society. Much like we had Westerns in the 40s and 50s, and then in the 70s and 80s, we had crime dramas being the most prevalent type of storytelling. For better or worse, when you look at what is being made on television and in movies, superhero movies rule the box office, rule the conversation. And with that comes a level of hero worship. And I think what's so smart about The Boys, and I think it's diving even deeper into it in this season, is it's dismantling and really making us question, should we idolize and worship our heroes, whether that be our fictional superheroes, or if you relate it to real life, everyone has someone they put on a pedestal, whether that be an actor, an athlete, a filmmaker, a politician, a firefighter. Are these people impervious to criticism? And are they the heroes that they are made out to be? Or are they more flawed and fucked up? And yes, we will be cursing. If you're watching this show, it means you've watched The Boys. You can handle an F-bomb here and there. There will be no blood and guts, but there will be cursing. Far more complex and fucked up than may meet the eye. And that is what The Boys does so, so well. And I think that has never been more clear than in these first 3 episodes.
Absolutely. It really honestly pulls back the veneer on that shiny, beautiful superhero visage that we see, and it gets gritty. And not just gritty, it's gory and it's flashy and it's wild, and it takes a lot of things that are happening in our world and in our country, and just breaks them open. And they're really, they're finally getting down to the brass tacks of what we, those people who know the comics, they're finally getting down to some of the actual tropes that get explored throughout the comics. So all in all, I think we're finally getting into the real meat and potatoes of The Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Meat and potatoes. That's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah.
Although
in The Boys, it might be like the
cash and prizes.
No, like the intestines and the brain matter.
I mean, depends on what episode we're talking about here.
Yeah. The other interesting thing in these first 3 episodes, and then Robert will give you an opportunity, is I would argue from the get, The Boys has always been an inherently political show.
Yes.
I think it's been very clear what side of the binary coin in terms of our politics here in America the characters fall under. And I think these 3 episodes dive even deeper into it with an exploration of gun culture, with an exploration of the way the media can manipulate the way we perceive people, with the way someone who is brazenly throwing all class and decorum aside and just saying how they feel, even if how they feel is super offensive and insulting to a preponderance of society. If you can hit that niche audience member, that niche person who you connect with, you can capture them and radicalize them. And I think that's something we're going to see progress throughout this season of The Boys. It is really diving into the political side of it, and it's hard not to draw allusions to America's politics over the last 4 to 6 years, particularly our previous president, the way he used lies and bravado and the media to get across his message. I think a direct parallel can be drawn to Vought and in particular Homelander in these first 3 episodes.
Absolutely. Robert?
Geez, y'all went in depth on that one. I'm just here for seeing people turned inside out, just guts all over the place like that. That's what brightens up my day. No, as weird as that sounds. I like a lot of the stuff. Kind of like what you're saying. This is a group of superheroes that we're not supposed to really enjoy following. Yet in some weird, like disturbed way, we actually do enjoy following them, or at least Homelander. I like that this is the type of show that right now, given the current like state of superhero movies, as Maxwell was saying, that is a major form of entertainment. But the thing with these superhero movies that we see is we see them being made for the mass public. You've got the Marvel Cinematic Universes under Disney's banner. You've got DC, which has pushed a little bit more of the envelope in some of their things, just because Warner Brothers doesn't necessarily be as family friendly as a House of Mouse. But you don't see, like, generally Marvel and DC really kicking up to the level that we see in this show. Because of that, they're able to be very meta with it, to speak upon the current state of superheroes in entertainment and basically make fun of it. there's a lot of stuff in these first 3 episodes that the second they showed it, I knew exactly what they were trying to do. And according to Twitter, it seems a lot of viewers knew exactly what they were trying to do, what kind of a nod or what they were suggesting. One in particular, like I said, first 10 minutes of the first episode, we'll get into that. I guarantee we will talk about that. But that's very much a throwback to something that was widespread on the internet about a certain superhero movie. Stuff like that. I love the being able to do stuff that you don't see in your typical superhero movies while still being meta and being entertaining with it. It's not like a bunch of eye rolls and groans like, oh, they did not just do that. Like, they're still pumping out shock value out of this, which I absolutely adore. Talking about like the political side of it, yeah, there's a lot of political messages in this. Real quick, one episode takes place at what looks like an NRA convention. Timely, great time for that episode. Let's just, but like, the guy's like license plate had like 4A forever or whatever, like or 2A forever, Second Amendment forever. So there's a lot of deep political messages. What I do like about this, though, you don't have to be political to be entertained by it. It's not something that you yourself need to have an opinion on one way or another. You just need to be a living, breathing human being and understand what they're talking about, what's going through. And I think that's something, whether you're political or not, whether you enjoy comic books or not, or comic book movies and TV shows, this is a kind of show that has something for everyone, except for my brother, who's not going to watch all the blood, guts, and intestines and stomachs and brains and everything all over on display. But yeah, I love this show. I'm a big horror fan. One of my favorite things about the horror genre is the level of detail that they go into with the special effects, hopefully practical, but like even some good CGI special effects, which The Boys does a lot of also. I love it, and bring on more of it.
Well, I think something you said right off the bat is emblematic of why this show works as well as it does and why it's great. Even if you were just coming into it for the thrills of the blood, the gore, the superhero action, the thriller element of it, the chase scenes, the espionage, because, you know, we have sort of the Seven and Vought International, and then you have the Boys, who basically are our rebels working, you know, in this season a little bit with the government, but also working just on their own terms to fight back what they think is the good fight. All of that stuff can be enjoyed just on a more superficial level, and it's still a hugely entertaining show. I would argue as entertaining as any superhero show we've gotten in the last few years. I'm including the MCU shows, I'm including Peacemaker, I'm including, you know, any television show that's dabbled in superheroics. This is as good, if not a little better. This continues to be, for me, the high watermark of the modern superhero television show.
I would venture to say that Peacemaker was probably the closest thing in terms of the humor and the things you see.
The violence,
yeah.
Oh, I mean, violence and gore, and I mean, realistically, let's be real here. The MCU is delightful. It's candy coated and adorable, and I mean, we only just saw our first general horror type entry. And
or even a sex scene. It wasn't until like the Eternals were like, oh yeah, these people fuck. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought they were all asexual, or like they don't replicate themselves or
into existence. I mean, but to be fair, the closest thing to The Boys would be Peacemaker, and it's nice that we're finally starting to see, okay, guys, we've got to start darkening this up, because listen, there's no such thing as candy coated when you're killing people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not possible. And I think that we have The Boys to help, not really blame, but credit for a lot of that, because we're starting to see more of an emergence of way more violent superhero stuff. And I mean, I'm sure somebody has something to say about it, but everything I have to say is 2 thumbs up. Fine holiday fun.
That all being said, we're going to now dive into the first episode, break it down with full spoilers. So episode 1 of season 3 is called Payback. It's directed by the great Phil Sgriglia. I may be pronouncing that wrong. Phil is one of the producers on this show. He has been a longtime collaborator with Eric Kripke, who is sort of the mastermind behind the show. The two of them worked hand in hand on Supernatural. And it's written by Craig Rosenberg. As I mentioned, we pick up 1 year approximately after the events of season 2. And we sort of have to see where all the chips have landed and where all of our main characters are. Obviously, Congresswoman, Newman was introduced last season. She has started a Bureau of Superhero Affairs, working for the government to help control soups who are considered problematic. And now working with her, sort of as her right-hand man, is our very own Huey.
She really needs to stop stealing his food.
Yes, she did like to take bites of his bagels, that's for sure.
And his sandwiches.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting place for Huey to start, because more so than any of the other characters on The Boys, in terms of those who work with Butcher in The Boys, Huey fell ass backwards into this and never necessarily was a fan of the back channel Rebel Alliance violent approach. He definitely doesn't like soups and doesn't like the way that they take advantage of their powers, but he has always been the type of character who, if there is a more straightforward, by the books, above board way to do it. So in terms of his characterization, him being a sort of like, I loved how, I don't know if it was in the first or second episode, other people working in this office were sort of idolizing him because how he helped take down Stormfront and how he's dating Starlight. Like, these people idolize him, but he is very much like a government suit when we start this season.
Absolutely. And like there's a lot in this episode that just catches you by surprise. For one, Aya Cash said she was not gonna be in this season.
She did.
And she fucking is.
She said, and I quote, "No, guys, I'll just be at home watching season 3 with the rest of you." Liar. We see you, Aya Cash.
She is at home watching it with us.
Episode 2, she is. But I mean, she definitely pulled a Andrew Garfield like werewolf stunt, not to the magnitude that he did, but you know, she's there. She's just, you know, she's badly disfigured. She's missing an arm. I mean, she's laying in a
jerking off Homelander.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is he jerking off, or is he just basically fucking her hand?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Also, I mean,
just hold your hand there.
And honestly, I was warned, and I'm just gonna say it. Within the first 10 minutes of the episode, we see a very interesting episode of superhero sex, where a very, very tiny man named Termite
yeah,
his boyfriend's penis, and then sneezes and explodes him.
Crawls into his butt.
No,
he crawls into his pee hole.
Okay, crawls into his penis. Forgive me.
I was like, I don't know what show you were watching, but that was definitely a dick hole.
And we see it right up front, and his boyfriend keeps saying, "That's it. Come closer, touch the prostate." Termite sneezes
because he's got like allergic reaction to cocaine or something.
Yes, because they've been snorting lines of coke. I loved when Termite, while shrunk, was sort of like jumping over the lines of cocaine as if it was a field he was frolicking in. But he sneezes while inside his boyfriend's penis, and while sneezing grows to normal adult male size and explodes his boyfriend from the inside out.
That's so great. It's so good.
It is one of the most disgusting things I've seen in a TV show, and I fucking loved it.
It was like, they were like, I was being warned, like, you're gonna see this and you're just gonna be like, and I was like, yeah, this tracks for The Boys.
Oh yeah,
totally something they would do.
But it is very much an example of a show meeting the standard of always having to top itself. You know, because in season 2, we saw some pretty horrific violence, like the scene at the hearing where everyone's head starts exploding.
Yeah.
Which we found out in the end of season 2 was Congressman Newman's doing. She's a secret soup.
Vicky, girl.
and we'll get into that in a second, but blowing up your boyfriend from inside his penis is grade A television, ladies and gentlemen. Top-notch stuff.
It was very surprising and very like, oh, they went to there. That's where they went. They went there.
Right. Well, what's interesting?
A credit back again to the comic, or not necessarily the comic book movies. Of course, everyone is, and their mom, especially their mom, is probably familiar with the idea of Avengers Endgame was going to involve Ant-Man crawling up Thanos's butt and then expanding the full size. That's exactly what they did. And like, and they were, I love that everyone on Twitter, everyone was calling it.
Episode 1 of season 3 of The Boys is definitive proof that Ant-Man could have killed Thanos if he just crawled up his rectum.
I would just like to make it very clear that everybody who posted that, thank you, because that is why I wasn't surprised.
Right.
I was like, yeah, that shit happened.
Well, what's interesting about this, aside from the glorious violence, is we see sort of this new paradigm about how the boys as an organization are almost working above board, because they are getting relayed information from Congresswoman Newman and Huey's work in this government office, and then they're using the boys sort of as their agents to go pick up dangerous soups and bring them in. Mm-hmm. And we really see Butcher, who arguably is the main character of the show. Carl Urban is a producer. He gets first credit. He's also one of the, I think, most underappreciated and engaging actors of the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, this guy's done everything from Star Trek to Lord of the Rings to the MCU and the boys.
I just watched Dread again last night.
Like Carl Urban is awesome, and I think in this show he is consistently absolutely superb. I'm going to say a word here that I know not everyone may like, but we're talking about The Boys. Carl Urban utters the word cunt with the best of them.
Oh yeah,
with the best of them.
Polite hand claps, because it is my favorite word.
But
my favorite.
In this scene, after Termite explodes his boyfriend, we see Butcher come in to save the day because Termite is fighting with Frenchie and Kamiko, and Butcher captures Termite in a Ziploc bag of cocaine while he's tiny. So even though it's not an immense amount of cocaine for his tiny little body, he overdoses, has to be sent to rehab. But what I found so interesting about this is, juxtaposed with how Butcher may have behaved in previous seasons, he makes the willing choice not to kill Termite right then and there. He could have easily have squashed him with his hand and that been the end of it. But he decides that, well, up until now, working with the Bureau of Superhero Affairs is going okay. We have a relationship and it's working. So they think. All of this is going on while we catch up with Homelander. Homelander is basically on a grand apology tour, because as we found out, and as the world found out in the end of season 2 of The Boys, Homelander was in love with and dating a Nazi. And as the resident Jew on this panel, let me just say, God damn, I dislike Nazis. Bad people across the board. 0 out of 10 for Nazis.
I was going to be like, who hasn't been in that position before? I mean, come on. But wait.
All of us.
We see the show in these scenes diving into how the media and the propaganda of the media can craft these narratives around these characters. So there's this incredible shot. So they're at the premiere of Dawn of the Seven, which had to have reshoots. And I love that in as much as a month and a half, we've gotten our second surprise. Oh, look, Charlize Theron's superhero cameo. So in the reshoots of Dawn of the Seven, Charlize is playing Stormfront. She looks fantastic.
She does.
It's the premiere of the movie.
Did y'all notice they made her like blonde hair, blue eye also?
Yes. Oh, very much.
Not like Aya Cash, that is brunette and probably not blue eyes, I don't believe.
No, well, and the interesting thing too about Aya Cash is her father was Jewish. So she is part Jewish. And so whenever you have a Nazi character being played, at least by someone who's half Jewish, they can bring an interesting dynamic into that. But anyway, so they're at the premiere and there's this incredible shot where Homelander on the red carpet, every single person that's interviewing him is asking about his relationship, and it just goes to this increased split screen of him giving a canned answer about how I'm just a man that fell in love. I didn't know. I made a mistake. I'm just human. We can all do this.
And it's like word for word,
Yeah.
and it's copy paste, like StreamYard magnificence, like different camera angles, and you're just like, wow.
Did you notice that is a lot very similar to Lady Gaga when she was doing like the press tour for A Star Is Born? Like every single press tour, she did the same phrase of like, you could be in a room with 100 people and only 99 of them don't like you. You only need one to like you, and that was Bradley Cooper. Like, and you could see multiple instances of her saying that, and it's so funny.
If you watch any star on a press tour for a new movie, if they're going on Fallon and Kimmel and the Today Show and Good Morning America and Colbert and Corden, they may tell slightly different stories, but there are always the same 5 or 6 sound bites that are approved by PR and their handlers that they're going to repeat time and time again. And to see that real world bullshit, over PR'd philosophy applied to a superhero who gone and fucked up and fucked a Nazi, there's something really chilling about it. And the other thing I think that's really chilling about this episode, and it plays out through the next ones, is we're introduced to a sort of reality show concept where they're basically having Starlight help pick who is going to be the next superheroes to join the 7. And I don't know about you, but I got a sort of Hunger Games vibe from this. The notion of our, the 7 is in its best form is supposed to be an organization of heroes that saves us and gives us hope. Obviously, we as audience members of The Boys know that they are the most corrupt, fucked up, violent, broken organization imaginable, because a straight white man is doing everything that the worst straight white men do, Homelander. And that's another really interesting element that takes on throughout the show.
You say straight white man, but really straight white maniac. Like,
maniac.
He's absolutely psychotic. And like he gets more and more deranged, and like you can see it in his eyes. Like his entire it devolves and it slowly just envelops this feel of, hi, I'm psychotic. Please look at me and love me. And he's very much the kind of he's very much the kind of person that like he toes the line of being loved and feared. And it's asking that the age-old question, would you rather be loved or feared? And Homelander wants both. He wants people to love him, and if they don't love him, he wants them to fear him. And it's terrifying because he's also the most powerful man on the planet, and he has multiple superpowers. And so that leads into the fact that Maeve has met with Butcher to find a way to end him. And then we meet, we figure out that something happened to the leader of a former group, the former big group before the 7, Payback. And we start to see little vestiges of Jensen Ackles' Soldier Boy.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that these 3 episodes do as a collective is it's introducing this mystery element of what happened to Soldier Boy. And each episode brings a different approach to the characters investigating this. Now, besides the fact that I'm a big fan of Jensen Ackles because I loved Supernatural, I think he's such smart casting, because if anyone was paying attention back when they were casting for Captain America, it came down to a few names being floated around. Chris Evans, who got the job, John Krasinski, and Jensen Ackles. And so to see Jensen Ackles, even in photos, and we'll get more into it in the other episodes, play who is basically Captain America if Captain America was a piece of shit, is really, really cool. And I like how there's a strong narrative arc throughout these episodes, which is this mystery aspect.
It's dark and it's crazy and he's terrifying. They're all crazy.
We could talk about the show and the writing, but honestly, considering this is a superhero show, it's really an acting showcase. Anthony Starr just gets better and better as Homelander. Let's ignore his real world problems that he had in 2021. And let's just say that he brings such intensity and mania to this role. Like, I cannot look away. I think with the writing and his performance, they are crafting one of the preeminent villains of modern TV at the very least. Like, Robert, you made a sort of a pantomime of the look that he often gives. When he does that, I cannot look away.
No, you can't.
He's
got that stare down. What's funny about him real quick is I don't think I've seen him in anything else. I know I've seen Without a Paddle, but I don't remember him in it, and it's been like over a decade since I've watched that movie. But I've gone back and I looked up like images of him, and it's really hard to see anything but Homelander just in his face. Like, his hair may be different, he's wearing different clothes, because we never see Homelander in anything other than his Homelander costume or butt ass naked. But I mean, we don't see him in anything else. So seeing him differently is really interesting, and yeah, it's still like really creepy. I see nothing but Homelander, and honestly, I hope he doesn't get typecasted.
I see some of his Instagram stuff, and I'm like, oh, you look so not tense.
Yeah,
in different clothes, chilling. But like, if I see him in the Homelander costume, he just always looks so tense and just wound. And I'm like, there's something you bring to that character, like, and it's amazing. I just can't. Captivated.
Yeah, there's a couple other little plot points about the first episode I want to bring up before we dive into episode 2. So we are introduced to V24, which is a version of Compound V, the chemical / drug that Vought has created that gives people their superpowers that is temporary. You take it, you become a soup for 24 hours. It has not been fully tested. The kinks aren't worked out, but Maeve does give Butcher a couple vials of V24. We also see a really interesting conversation between Butcher and Homelander, where they're basically like, listen, fuck all this bureaucracy and red tape. I liked it much better when we were just two guys who hated each other. We had problems over the same woman, and we could just go at it. We didn't have to like get a government agent to sign it off. And I thought that was really interesting. But I started out by talking about Huey, and I'm going to end our episode 1 discussion with bringing it back to Huey. It would not be a season premiere of The Boys if Huey didn't end up looking slack-jawed, covered in blood.
Yep.
Happens every time. So why not? So here we are bopping around being like, oh, look at this guy. Look at Huey. Jack Quaid is doing such a great job. I love Jack Quaid. Huey finally has it all. He has the superhero girlfriend. He's on the red carpet with the 7. He has some sort of working relationship with Vought. He's working for the government. Oh, wait. He sees Vicky, aka Nadia, blow up his her friend's head, and then gets covered in blood splatter from when she continues to blow up his entire body. And then Huey's like, oh, I guess things are not all great and Oz as I thought they were.
And then she calls somebody and she says, I need a cleanup.
And
he's there for the whole thing, hiding behind a dumpster. And I mean, for one, you can't help but feel bad for this guy. He just keeps getting into shit. And he thinks he's doing the right thing, and he still gets covered in blood.
Huey's a perfect archetypal character. He's the audience surrogate. Like I said, he got thrust into all of this ass backwards because A-Train accidentally killed his girlfriend in the premiere of the show. He never had any dog in the fight until that happened. And I would argue, maybe increasingly less so, but of all of our main characters, Huey has the strongest moral compass. Or at the very least, he tries to have the strongest moral compass.
I mean, he did kill a soup in season 1.
No, well, he kills people, but he tries to be a good guy. He fails, but at least he's fighting the good fight. Yeah. But anyways, that brings us to episode 2 of season 3 of The Boys, called The Only Man in the Sky, which is also directed by Phil Sgriglia and written by David Reed. Why don't you walk us a little bit through of this second episode?
All right. Well, so now the boys are very deep into trying to...
By the way, we do get $1 for every time we say the boys. The boys, the boys, the boys. Robert?
The boys?
The boys. There it is.
Okay.
No, we don't.
I do my part around here too. The boys.
So
The boys,
they're
boys,
investigating Soldier Boy's death, and they're trying to figure out what is going on. And Huey heard Red River being talked about, tossed around by Tony and Vicky, Nadia, whatever her name is, Congresswoman Newman. So he ends up at Red River, and he's trying to investigate.
Nadia, and I think American Pie.
And he copies records. He gets onto a computer. He kind of basically has to make them believe that he's there to have kids with.
Right. We find out Red River is an orphanage for soups.
Yeah, and
which is horrifying.
Yeah, and it's really, some of the soups in there, the super kids are creepy.
The woman running the orphanage basically makes allusion to the fact that all of these soups probably accidentally or otherwise use their superpowers to kill their parents, which is like
which was in the what's the boys cartoon? They did that on there.
Oh, did they?
Oh, wow.
Where they showed the kids from Red River being sent back from, I guess, Red River and killing their parents.
I definitely want to watch the cartoon. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
And I also think a lot of this is setting up some things we may see in the spinoff, because they're working on a spinoff of The Boys about a college for superheroes.
Did y'all notice also it's the orphanage is Red River, as in black water?
Well, so getting through some of this, there's a lot. Two members of the team, Frenchie and Kimiko, they go to confront Crimson Countess at Votland, and it turns into a crazy fight. And Kimiko basically they somehow a character dressed as Homelander it gets killed in the ensuing fight, and gory as fuck.
All of that aside, gosh, I would love to visit Votland. That place looks fun.
It does look really fun.
I was like, that roller coaster looks amazing.
What in the all the food and everything they had, was it woke walk and inclusive tacos and
right. So we see this area of Votland that is basically themed after Maeve, because Maeve came out of the closet in season 2, and everything in this series, it's all PR people testing their Q ratings, testing how this plays, and that is a thread. And so it played well that they had a queer member of the Seven, so they turned the Maeve section of Votland into the most frankly obnoxiously overly inclusive woke place.
Yep.
It is so okay, this is Pride Month, right? I consider myself queer. Amber considers herself queer in different ways. And so one of the things that you see in Pride Month is every corporation all of a sudden is like, oh yeah, I'm a little gay. Here's my new logo with the rainbow flag. And, we're doing this, that, and the other thing, which on its face is great to show that they are celebrating pride in the LGBTQ plus community. But by the same token, there is something about it that feels a little artificial, because where are y'all the rest of the year, those 11 months, when you're still donating to Republican super PACs that are trying to pass don't say gay laws?
They're really busy.
Isn't that funny, how timely this show is?
It's so timely. And so I'm sitting here and I'm seeing this area of Votland where it's so overly inclusive. I'm like, this is a direct slap in the face to how capitalism and corporations, and yes, Disney, is only yay for gay and woke when it benefits their bottom line. And then all of a sudden, if it's not helping out their checkbooks, it's really easy to turn a corner, look the other way, or donate to politicians who are going to help their bottom line with tax cuts, but then say horrible things or pass laws that go against gun control or gay people.
They know what they're saying. They know what they're doing.
They're
just like,
for a show that had a scene where a superhero shrinks down into his boyfriend's penis and explodes him from the inside. This is an exceptionally intelligent work of satire that does not pull its punches. And as we keep saying, in so many avenues, is incredibly timely, because as Burr is going to walk us through, and we talked about a little bit in our preamble, we find ourselves in our investigation into what happened with Soldier Boy at what is essentially a gun show.
Yeah, pretty much. And Gunpowder, not my favorite superhero, and seems like
No.
he would be the favorite of a certain subset of people. And I'm not going to even talk about it, but it's very, very entertaining to see this happen. And Billy Butcher, well, let's talk about this man. And he gets tempted by that V24, and boy, does he ever go to have a chat. Like, well, he takes it on the second chat. The first one, it's just like guns and like he shoots it in the leg and like runs away. The second one, he reconfronts Gunpowder and finds out that Soldier Boy was like, he died in Nicaragua. And then like, and it's with Mallory, who is taking care of Ryan, Homelander's son, with Becca.
Right.
Butcher has gotten really close with Ryan,
which is something I love. It's so sweet. And just another side of Butcher that Carl Urban plays so well.
Well, I mean,
did y'all notice real quick? He bought Connect 4 to play with Ryan from Amazon.com on a show that's on Amazon Prime.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, there was
oh my god.
I definitely saw him go on Amazon on his phone. I was like, oh, you.
I would just like to make it very clear that so Gunpowder's death is not the most gruesome, but it's definitely pretty wild. Well, because not only does his Butcher is not a soup, but he takes the V24 and he literally laser eyes this guy, his head in half along with a car.
And I don't even think at that time Butcher realized he had that power, right? And what's so interesting about this is maybe more than any other character on the show, Butcher hates soups. He hates everything they stand for. He hates the power they wield. And so when Maeve gives him the V24 in the first episode, he's all set to put it down the drain and not think about it. And then that's when Homelander enters. So instead he puts V24 in this little cookie jar he has on his counter that looks like a bulldog. So here I am thinking, Chekhov's V24. This shit is going to come into play. But I honestly thought Butcher was not going to take it until the end of the season in some sort of showdown with Homelander.
Which is probably still going to happen.
Because he has 2, if I'm not mistaken, he was given 3 vials, so he's used 1. So he has these superpowers, basically all the powers of Homelander: bulletproof, super strength, laser eyes. We don't know if he can fly.
Probably.
But the other fascinating thing about Gunpowder is the way they use this character to continue to build the mystery of Soldier Boy. So Gunpowder is posited as Soldier Boy's sidekick. And Butcher has a piece of paper that Mother's Milk gave to him, who, of course, is out of the game, but finds his way back in.
His wife convinces him to come back in. She's like, you need to do this, or ex-wife.
And we're going to talk about his ex-wife's new boyfriend or partner in a minute. This piece of paper says that Soldier Boy was molesting and abusing Gunpowder. So here we have again a goody two-shoes all-American superhero who is the leader of the most popular superhero group, who's a piece of shit. Power corrupts.
Did y'all see who's playing Gunpowder?
No,
Sean Patrick Flannery.
Is that Sean Patrick Flannery? Oh wow.
Powder, yeah.
Oh wow.
Or what's his face from Boondock Saints? Yeah.
He is aged. He is aged. He is not aged as well as his fellow Boondock Saint Norman Reedus, safe to say.
Which is weird, but Norman Reedus has always looked like he was in his 50s back in his 20s.
He plays the character really convincingly. He is the epitome of every person who is, sort of looks at guns as their religion.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mince words here. We've talking about how timely this is. We're seeing how much of a problem gun control is in this country, and there is this thing called the gun show loophole. So to see a scene in this satirical superhero show take place at a gun show, and I think my favorite moment where I both rolled my eyes and laughed and I was like, that tracks, is Butcher's entering the gun show. He goes through a metal detector. The metal detector goes off. He pulls his handgun out, and I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna get caught. Because at that point, I don't even think we realized he was at a gun show. And the security guard is like, "Oh, sir, that's a nice piece. Have a good day." And then the camera pans out and you're like, "Oh shit, he's at a gun show." So what are the metal detectors
Like,
for?
what?
What are they for? What could they be bringing in that's not allowed?
Knives.
Listen,
You don't bring a knife to a gun show.
you can bring your 9mm or your 12 gauge, but leave your knives at home, kids.
So something that we have not discussed yet, and here, move back this way. I was like, you keep moving off camera. I'm like, bye, see you later. This is the Amber show. Hey, something.
That's
No,
actually
not
easier
you.
if I go this way.
No, you and Nick Cage stay there. Nick Cage is Mona Lisa. So something that we haven't discussed is that Starlight becomes the co-captain of the 7.
Mm-hmm.
And Homelander is already losing his mind because, you know, Stormfront is basically laying crazy in a bed, and she's like saying all kinds of fun Nazi things while, you know, she gets hand fucked by by Homelander. But it's like he literally starts to truly devolve because his leadership is being threatened by Annie. And so one of the biggest, like, that this episode leads up to his birthday celebration, where they're supposed to announce the winners of this reality show.
Isn't that the next episode?
Or no, like they're doing something with the winners of the reality show, and I think Annie announces that he's donating a ton of money to the Starlight Foundation. He gets really mad, and then doesn't he go off at the end of this episode?
He goes off when a person in the audience heckles him saying Homelander like dated a Nazi or something.
And mind you, part of the reason why he snaps is because only hours before this, Stormfront commits suicide.
Supposedly.
No, it's like I think it's true. I do think it's true. I think she was a foil for the season. I don't think she's coming back.
I don't think she's coming back, but it's possible that someone off her made it look like a suicide.
That also could be a thing. However, something that needs to be paid attention to here is that it's so easy, and this is yet again a satire on the rhetoric that gets talked about in this country. You see these figureheads take attention and become popular amongst people on the internet and social media. And we saw it with Stormfront. Her rhetoric was super popular and people loved her and were resharing everything on social media. And then you see at the very end of the episode, while Homelander is in the middle of this rant on this show.
This rant that by any logical definition is depraved, maniac.
I'm better than you and I know it.
Yeah, it's just insane. He's being an egomaniac.
They're eating it up.
Right? And listen, it is hard not to draw a comparison to our previous president. When Anthony Starr is delivering this speech as Homelander, it felt like a slightly more articulate version of some of the speeches that he gave on his campaign trail back in 2016.
Only on the campaign trail, the whole way through.
The whole way through.
And I mean, to try to, avoid being too political in our real world, even though all media is relatively political.
This show
if you don't think
political.
It is, then you have major issue here, because guess what?
Art is inherently political.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, guys.
Mother's Milk's ex-wife, her boyfriend, is totally getting riled up. He's a Homelander stan.
You can see him being radicalized as the speech is happening.
Yes.
He's like he's getting there's something about the performance and the way it's shot. You are watching a straight white man become galvanized by his hero going off book and saying exactly what he needs to hear. And I cannot help but think that as this season goes on, we are going to see these radicalized Homelander fans start causing real problems. We saw an element of this in season 2, where that guy shoots the person he thought was a super terrorist at the convenience store. This is not the first time The Boys has delved into this sort of political analogy. So anyone who sits there and says, "Oh, why is The Boys political all of a sudden?" I don't think you were watching the first 2 seasons.
And
yeah.
it leads directly into the third episode. And I don't know, do you want to take this one on or do I? What do we want to do?
Well, okay. Episode 3 is called Barbary Coast. It is directed by Julian Holmes and written by Anselm Richardson and Jeff Aull, Aull. There is one thing we have to mention about episode 2 before we dive in, and it is revealed that Nadia was adopted, sort of, by
Edgar.
Stan Edgar,
Stan
CEO of
yeah.
Vought.
Yeah.
So he's basically
So Nadia is even more of potentially bad news than we thought. And Stan Edgar, played by the incomparable Giancarlo Esposito, who is maybe modern television's greatest badass. Something happened when this actor was cast as Gus Fring on Breaking Bad, that now if you need someone who can be stoic and stern, but exude the most, like, he is always the most in control, the smartest guy in the room, the scariest guy in the room, you hire Giancarlo Esposito. He did it on The Mandalorian. He's doing it here on The Boys.
He's literally, he just pops up everywhere now. They're like, okay, cool. Need a bad guy? Moff Gideon. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Gustavo Fring.
It's great.
Anyways, this brings us into episode 3.
Well, so real quick, going back, talking about his connection with Newman in the Boys comics. It is, so first of all, in the comics, Newman's actually a guy.
Okay.
He's a complete moron. He is groomed by Stan Edgar and is basically just used as a tool to like manipulate in future endeavors, however Edgar sees fit to use him. He is a congressman, just like Newman is here in this show. But yeah, he doesn't last very long. He's expendable. I guarantee you she's already lasted longer than her counterpart in the comics has.
I'm wondering how faithful they're going to stay, because I know they've already strayed away on a lot of things. So I'm wondering, I mean, the question is like, I don't know whether I get good vibes from her or bad vibes. And, you know, we always got kind of shitty vibes from Stan Edgar, but it's very clear that he's in opposition to our main bad guy. So I'm like, I don't know where these two are going. What are they doing here?
The notion of a politician being groomed by a CEO of a company is another example of this show drawing satirical political parallels to the sort of stuff that, I mean, it's super PACs, it's the Koch brothers, it's all of this stuff. So this brings us into episode 3, Barbary Coast. And one of the things we've been talking about is how obsessed these characters are, Homelander, but also all of the PR people working at Vought, with approval ratings. We mentioned that Starlight becomes co-captain of the 7 because her approval ratings are as high as it's ever been. But this speech, and we find this out in episode 3, this speech that Homelander gave in certain marketplaces, and they are very deliberate and pointed in the...
Just say it. Rural white men
of a certain age skyrockets. And the show even goes so far as to say that it's not playing so well with, quote, younger urban audiences. You do not need a degree in political science to understand what the show is saying.
And I have one. I was like, ooh.
So this show is getting scarier and scarier in its approach to real world political satire as seen through the lens of superheroes.
This ain't Jemima's Multiverse of Madness anymore.
Right.
This is literally today only with superheroes. It's like, oh my God. And
I do love Ashley running in to tell Homelander his numbers.
Yes.
While he's like completely naked, and she's like, and then she's like,
Ashley drives me crazy in the best way. The writing and performing of that character are on point.
Her fucking that director guy in the bathroom.
Oh my God. And going back to that, I don't know if you caught this, but she says when they're having sex at the premiere that it doesn't even matter that Tony Gilroy had to come in and do the reshoots.
Yeah.
Tony Gilroy had to come in and do the reshoots for Star Wars Rogue One. They are not missing any opportunity to throw shots, especially at the mouse.
Oh yeah.
I would argue that episode 3 of this show is the least plot heavy, because I think the first 3, the first 2 are really setting up the exposition for where the season's going. That this episode really has 2 main focuses. So let's start with the reality show. So Starlight and Homelander are co-captains. They need to fill in the void of who's going to take on slots at the 7. We are introduced to this character in earlier episodes, who used to be Annie's boyfriend when they were much younger. He's a pop star. Supersonic.
He's like a Backstreet Boy.
Huey is understandably jealous because this guy is good looking.
And we've seen him in the last 2 episodes, but he's not very important until now.
He becomes important now. He wins the reality show and is offered one of the other slots on the 7. And this is where the show pulls a twist on both the audience and the other characters.
And I do believe we kind of knew it was coming because Homelander had been dropping seeds, but we get a twist. And who comes back?
The one character we haven't really talked about who has been in the episodes is the Deep. So the Deep has been on a book tour. He wrote a book called, I think, Deeper. Where they even go so far as to say that Malcolm Gladwell called him the new Leah Remini because the Deep and his new cute little strange wife Deeper escaped from that religious cult and are exposing all of its problematic tendencies.
They escaped from Scientology. No, wait. Well, it's not Scientology. No. It's Scientology.
It's
not going Thetan level today, guys.
Right. So the Deep gets reintroduced to the 7. Now, when Annie is offered the job of co-captain, she is skeptical. It's really Huey who convinces her to take the job so that she can be right up there in it as a double agent, feeding them information.
And a lot of this is showing her reaction to all these things. Like it starts out her doing pageants and she's like in pain and she's sitting there clenching her fist behind her back.
And that was the most awkward moment. Like, I'm like, she really should not be dancing like this.
You've never met a helicopter mom
no, I haven't. So
very much what happens in the pageant world. And so
so cringy.
Tying that in with elements of grooming and how these people become superheroes is so fucked up. But you just know instinctually that if superheroes were real in this world, this is exactly how it would happen. This all comes to a head where Homelander, who is feeling emasculated by Starlight, who feels he is losing his grip and control over the 7, decides to pull a fast one on her and say that they have fallen in love and kiss her.
#homelight.
Disgusting.
And that's where she's standing there. Like the first one, she's shocked, but it's already happened and she already knows about it. It's a shock to us. But then she's standing there and she's making out with him and she's got her hand behind her back.
Now, Ashley and the directors of the reality show and the other PR guys say, we need to cut and refilm this so you look less shocked.
Yeah.
In this moment, Annie has the opportunity to not play along. But you can almost see her go through the motions and decide, listen, if I really want to get rid of Homelander, if I really want to help Huey and Butcher and everyone else eradicate this horrific guy from the planet, my best choice is keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. So she goes all in, she kisses him again, she's all lovey-dovey, and it is horrifying and haunting, particularly because Deep was partly kicked out of the 7 because he mouth raped Starlight.
Yeah.
And now he, not only does Annie have to deal with him being back, but now she's basically being forced to be in this sham relationship for clicks and love, but also so she can be a double agent. It's really ghoulish stuff that's going on here.
It gets you. It's just like,
But honestly, the writing has been exceptional. So the
there are also a couple other threads that we need to pick on, because I mean, for one, the dinner party with the Deep is so gross.
Oh my God.
It's here's the thing, like I've seen octopus being eaten live like that.
Well,
Typically it's not a big deal, but it's the fact that it's coming from the Deep, who is friends with the fishes.
The scene is played so grotesquely. It reminded me of the original Korean language version of the film Old Boy.
Yes.
A little bit. If you've seen that, there is a very similar gross out sequence.
Yep.
Seen it. I'm glad.
I love Old Boy. Old Boy's so good.
Great movie.
Just so you know, the part with the ink streaming from his mouth,
she gagged.
I was like, I can't look, and I couldn't.
It is so funny.
That was the thing that got me.
So
real quick, off maybe slightly off topic. Octopuses don't ink. Squids do.
Right. Maybe it was a squid.
That was weird.
Anyways, it was. Regardless of that, it was a great visual, disgusting effect, and to his credit, Chase plays the scene really well. Chase Crawford.
Yeah. Kudos, sir, because
he's been playing ever since the very beginning. He's been playing this unhinged character so well. Like it is really cringy to watch him on screen.
I never thought much of Chase as an actor. Before this, he was most well known for being on Gossip Girl. He played Nate Archibald, who was really, of all of the main characters, probably the most thinly written and least interesting. He was fine, but honestly, like everyone else in the show, he is bringing like new layers and shades of what he's capable of as an actor. And when you have someone like him or Anthony Starr who can do this and also look like that, it has a really chilling effect. It's very disarming. And I don't know about you guys, I feel that his entire apology tour, his relationship with his new wife, it's all fake.
Yeah.
There is an element of it that feels so fabricated just so he can get back in the seven.
He was fantasizing over the squid friend he had to eat.
Yeah.
He was staring at the octopus while having sex.
Well, it's an octopusy.
Yeah, octopusy. That's great.
So what he did in this dinner party scene is he ate the octopusy.
Yeah. I like his the TV movie, like the Lifetime.
Oh my God,
movie,
yes.
Not Without My Dolphin, where the head of like the Scientology cult, whatever, was Billy Zane,
which is amazing.
So good.
So good.
I was like, is that Billy fucking Zane?
It is. It's such good casting.
Two other points that we have to bring up. And I'm going to bring up the smaller plot point because it's the saddest one to me. Remember how we said Butcher and Ryan got really close? Well, Butcher is at Mallory's. He's like under the effects of the second vial of V24. So he's used 2 now in the first 3 episodes. And
was it not the effects still of the first one?
It's still the effects of the first one.
I think he's
to be fair, I'd taken an edible, so forgive me.
I think
he spent a good part of the episode like puking and having reactions to
side effects of it's weared out of his system and he's almost in withdrawal. It's making him sick, nauseous, throwing up.
But the most important piece is that he loses it on Ryan. And he literally blames Ryan for Becca's death.
Now, I don't know how you feel about this, Robert, but I turned to Burr after we watched it and I said, part of me feels that Butcher is doing this to protect Ryan.
I felt the same way.
To keep his distance, alienate him, because the more Ryan is kept away, the more safe he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Butcher and the other boys, because in this scene, Butcher, Huey, and Mother's Milk all go to visit Mallory and Ryan. They're just drawing attention to him.
Correct.
And
I think Mallory even says that, like, we're trying to hide him. And
he's like you in your clown car or whatever.
And in the callback to the scene where Homelander visits Butcher, he says, "Where's my son?" And he's like, "I'm not fucking telling you that.
Right.
Like, I'm not. What the fuck?" But
it's a heartbreaking scene. Carl Urban, again, his performance is exceptional. You can see how much it's hurting Butcher to even have to say these things, which is why I think there's a performative element of it.
Absolutely. But the most important piece of this episode is that we find out what happened on the Barbary Coast.
Right. It is a sustained flashback.
Yes.
Mallory tells the story of what happened in Nicaragua.
Yep.
I don't know the actress's name who plays young Mallory, but it is one of the most incredible pieces of casting I've seen in terms of a younger actress playing the younger version of a character. Amber was almost like, are we sure it's a different actress? Are they not just using de-aging technology? No, it's a younger actress, but my God, is it good casting.
It really is.
And I think, and I may be mistaken, but thus far in The Boys, this is the most sustained flashback we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, at least half of this episode, Barbary Coast, tells what happens on the Barbary Coast. We see Mallory and her soldiers, and then we see Payback, the old superhero team, come to try and help, including Soldier Boy, Gunpowder, some winged creature, Swatto, whatever, Crimson, Countess, and the other team members.
The TNT twins.
The TNT twins.
Basically the what was it, the Jan and Zaina from the Wonder Twins or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
From Super Friends, because they even have to they have to hold hands for their powers to work too. So it's kind of cool.
Sarah Swire.
I had to look it up because it's Layla Robbins as the older Mallory, or Grace Mallory, and it's Sarah Swire playing her as young
Incredible
Mallory.
Performances from both of them, and
she's so good.
And this is just another example of why I think when we talk about unsung heroes of Hollywood, casting directors,
Mm-hmm.
impeccable.
Absolutely.
But these flashback scenes are impeccably done. Of course, as anyone could have predicted, the superheroes fuck up the mission.
As how they usually do.
We see Soldier Boy die. Keeping in mind, I haven't read the comics and don't know spoilers, I am all but certain that Soldier Boy is alive and well, and we're going to see him in episode 4 or 5 in the present time. Darn good stuff.
Yeah, and it's peppered through with a couple smaller storylines, but this is the most important piece.
The meat and the intestines and brain matter of episode 3.
Super weapon that can kill these invincible superheroes, and that's what we need.
Supposedly.
Well, according to everybody. And that's why Butcher leaves and is mad.
Right. Mallory was hiding from Butcher that this weapon exists, which is why I think there's some shenanigans going on. And Butcher and the boys, this journey they're on, this mystery is going to lead them directly to a still alive in hiding Soldier Boy.
Yes.
What is Soldier Boy going to be like? How is he going to feel? Is he going to hate Homelander? Is he going to team up with the boys? Is he going to be another villain? I cannot wait to see more of Jensen Ackles, because I know, I can tell, Robert, you know what happens in the comics.
But like we said, that doesn't necessarily matter for the show.
No. Which I have something that cut to that point to also bring up because of this scene. So
yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
This scene's also very key on giving us like an origin story of Black Noir.
Yes, absolutely.
This is effectively the first time we've seen Black Noir without the mask on at all. Spoiler alert, he's a black guy. But going to the comics, and this will actually be a real spoiler for the comics if anyone's reading it and they haven't gotten to this point yet. Spoiler for the comics. Not for the TV show, though.
Right.
In the comics, Black Noir is actually a clone of Homelander. That was placed there by Vought to in case Homelander goes crazy, psycho or whatever, that Black Noir can come in, unmask, and everyone will think it's Homelander.
Yeah.
Obviously they're not doing that route in the show, but I do like a part of this is in that flashback is Black Noir saying, "Hey, I hate this helmet. I don't want to wear a mask or anything." And
suffers the consequences of this.
Yeah, he's being told like, "No, dude, you're black. Nobody wants to see a black person as a superhero. Put the mask on." And then, of course, he gets burned or damaged in the ensuing gunfight, so he has to put the mask on because no one wants to see someone who's disfigured either.
Yes.
But what's funny about that is going back to how this mirrors real life. Go and look at the marketing for Black Panther, In the United States, the poster for Black Panther, or at least the teaser poster that we got, was T'Challa in the Black Panther outfit with his hands up, the claws, but he wasn't wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm.
While in China, they released the same exact poster with the mask on because nobody wants to see a black man
Or
in a movie.
or if you look at posters for The Force Awakens,
oh yeah, they don't put Finn like Force.
John Boyega is right there on the poster, and then in China and certain other countries, John Boyega was removed from the posters.
What's
because
funny,
everything comes down to Q ratings and all that nonsense.
So quick side note on this. A project I'm working on right now for Cinefanatics, it's not a plug, I'm just bringing this up for conversation, is one of the things, Kevin Feige, the leader, savior of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, used to work under Isaac Perlmutter, who was the head of Toy Biz.
Yes.
Isaac Perlmutter wanted the movies to stay away from having a lead female superhero or a lead minority superhero, because Isaac Perlmutter, again coming from a toy marketing standpoint, didn't think you can't sell female or minority toys. No one's going to buy that. They're only going to buy white superhero male toys. Because of that, Kevin Feige was about to leave the Marvel Cinematic Universe altogether because he wasn't going to get his way working under Perlmutter. It was at that time when Disney took over Marvel, and Kevin Feige no longer worked under Isaac Perlmutter. He went under Disney. The story fantastic, because we got Captain Marvel and Black Panther, and I think the world is much better for it.
Much better.
Mm-hmm.
The stories of Ike Perlmutter's casual.
Oh yeah.
Racism and sexism goes far beyond that.
Oh yeah.
It was say what you want about Disney buying up every piece of IP and how they've handled it, but the fact that separated Ike from Marvel was a great thing.
I would also like to bring up something that we kind of glossed over. Throughout the 3 episodes, and it's a small plot point in different places, A-Train is grappling with the loss of his powers and the possibility of leaving the Seven. But he's so consumed with the popularity and the fame that he has that he refuses to leave, even though he goes to see his family and hangs out with them. And they're all like, why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
And he won't do it. And he's wearing this like garish, like colorful costume that's co-opting
African
the culture.
Heritage.
Yeah,
supposed to be like African tribal heritage.
And like, and basically, I think it's his brother, and he's like, you look like a fucking moron.
Yeah.
I was like, this is beautiful. A-Train will never fail to remind me of the guy that reminds me of him from Ultimate Tag.
Yeah.
Forever and Ever. That guy. I can't think of his name, but yeah.
Anyways, listen, these episodes are dense. They are beautifully written. We could talk about them for another couple hours, but I think this is a great point to wrap it up. As I said, we will be back every week with a new episode here on Ember Productions with our very special guest, Robert Adams, breaking down the episodes in great detail as we had done today. I think it's safe to say that all of us are effusive in our praise for this show and this season thus far. I am expecting that to continue on. Any final thoughts before we say goodnight here?
I'm kind of hoping that we get a really terrible episode. That way there's like some kind of like anti-boys sentiment talked about at some point. It's not going to happen. I love this show from the very first episode I watched of season 1. It's not slowing down. It's perfect. I love it the way it is. I do like the fact, and I was going to mention this earlier when we were talking about the Vought land, but anyone else notice how like absurd it is that we're essentially in a world where bodies are blowing up left and right? You see people's insides outside of them all the time, and no one seems to really bat an eye or anything. It's just really weird. It's funny. It's so surreal, and I love it.
There's a lot of fiction now about.
Is it surreal?
It's not.
I mean, is it?
I mean, if you just look at how many mass shootings there were over the last 2 weeks, it's almost as if this country has become complacent and okay with violence. Granted, it's not super powered violence where people's heads are exploding, but once you become complacent.
I mean, like, think about it. You take public transport sometimes, right? You get on a bus or you go on a train, and there's always some like some random person that's really just, not adhering to the norm and kind of being awkward and maybe yelling or dragging all of their things from one end of the car to the other.
Hey, that's usually me.
I know, sweetheart. I didn't want to say you, but
Feel attacked here.
but like, and it's the type of society that we live in where we, rather than get involved or, we stop and either A, stare, or B, ignore. I mean, the last 2 nights that we were out at dinner, like we had somebody walk up and beg us for money while we're sitting at a table. It's like you can't look away from these things, but you kind of have to be like, okay, this is impeding what's going on and it's our normal. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even meant to be cruel. How, like, they're really honestly showing culture at its finest
or its worst.
That's what I meant.
I know.
And it kind of forces you to take a really abject look at yourself. Well,
I think, not to, we want to wrap it up here, but they do explore this a little bit with Kamiko, how she reacts to seeing that happen at Votland, how she felt her and her brother never had a childhood because they were soups and were introduced to violence so early, and how now she is brokenhearted that she was responsible, not directly because it was the Crimson Countess who did it, but in her altercation with her, caused these innocent kids who were at Votland for a fun day eating ice cream or donut burgers, saw basically Mickey Mouse explode.
Yeah. And
that was what made me think of that question of the, like, we're seeing this happen all the time and people just don't. That's where I realized that was happening.
It casts a very bright spotlight on the world where, we know these things happen. We don't want to necessarily see or pay attention to them, but they're thrust right in your face. And you now have to face the reality, or what do you do when that reality is staring you in the face? Yeah. Do you look away? Do you walk away? Like, what do you do? So,
and this is all from a superhero show.
Yep.
Never judge a book by its cover. Anyways, thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you liked it. Leave a comment. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that alarm bell to know when we have a new video or when we may be going live.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter at Ember Products. You can find our individual Twitter handles in the description below. Robert, what's your Twitter handle? And just what do you got going on if you want to take a minute here to pimp your ride, so to speak?
You can follow me as a part of the Cinefanatics. We're at youtube.com/Cinefanatics. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CinefanaticsMLP. You can follow me personally at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for joining us. We will be back next week where we talk about episode 4 of The Boys in great detail. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. Bye.